Pauline Hanson, thanks for joining us again. This drought relief package, the extension of the farm assistance package, you're going to put up some recommendations, some amendments to that?
I have. I'm actually saying don't just take to the 4 years over a 10-year period. It should be unlimited time, because drought, especially in Queensland, Longreach went through drought for 8 years before they got some rain. And I think it possibly could be back in drought again. The fact is there's no time limit on drought in Australia for that matter. So farmers need that backup and assistance. If we don't have a time limit on people getting New Start or other allowances, why are we putting a time limit on farmers?
Yeah, it seems strange to those of us who are actually not dealing in this day in, day out, how you could possibly have this cut out after 4 years. The government's proposal includes a lump sum payment at the end of that 4 years. Surely it would be better, as you say, to continue the payments so long as the drought conditions or the repercussions of that last.
You are so right, Chris. You know, the lump sum payments, whether it be $7,000 or $13,000, the fact is that it's not going to go anywhere. You are propping up the household. That's what they're doing at the moment. But drought doesn't only affect the household. It affects the herds, whether it be whatever animals they're carrying, whether it be sheep or whether it be beef or dairy. The fact is that they can't afford to feed their animals and they can't water them. We've allowed this country to be so run down as far as water. Water is the reason behind all this. Lack of water, drought. Can't irrigate, can't farm, can't rear your produce. So anyway, that is the real problem. The government have been so slack in putting in water infrastructure, and this has been going on for many years. But what I'm saying is, he's put money behind, you know, the drought package and mental health and $5 million there. Ask the question why. Why is it mental health? Deal with the issues. So if you actually give the money or get fodder, go and buy the fodder from New Zealand if we have to, because we're now going to have to import grains and fodder into the country. Import the fodder, give it to the farmers. But as I've said before, when we have a glut of this, pay the farmers to grow that extra bit, put it in storage so we have it then prepared for the next time of drought, and you're going to stop all the shonkies out there that are raising the prices and charging double, if not triple, the cost for this fodder.
Well, let's stick on these assistance payments for now. You want to put up a proposal to make them open-ended. It's impossible to cost this, of course, because no one knows how long the drought's going to last. Do you expect that you might be able to get support for this amendment?
Look, I hope so, because at the end of the day, you know, we don't know how much it's going to cost us, but we do know how much it will cost us if we will be a nation that can't feed ourselves. So I don't care what the initial dollar value is. It's more important to us to be able to grow the produce that we need. We know that we have free trade agreements. We're sending our produce overseas. The impact it will have on this country, but more importantly, will we be able to feed ourselves? That's the big question that Australians need to ask. Now, Scott Morrison, you know, I believe his heart is with the people and he does care about it, but the people are seeing that he's not doing enough, and that's what they want. Infrastructure projects must be started straight away. What I'd say is bring in the fodder, as I said, from overseas, buy it, distribute it to the farmers so they're not slaughtering their cattle or having to, you know, sell them off. And this is their seed cattle. This is their breed that they need to continue breeding, whereas we've got prime dairy cows now being sold to China. And it's a genetics that takes years and if not decades to get to that standard. So these are big problems. Water. I would be paying the farmers now to actually put dams on their properties, allow them the ability to do it, not shut them down if they build a dam over a certain size, being picked up by satellite surveillance and being questioned over it. So get them to put more dams on the property so they can be self-sufficient, drought-proof themselves.
We're hearing a lot of this. We're hearing a lot of critics saying that Scott Morrison will be remembered for not doing enough here, even though he's been onto the drought since the first day he became Prime Minister. And obviously, as you mentioned, there are a number of schemes in place, but people are talking about bringing in the army to distribute feed, as you say, importing feed from overseas. There are a lot of difficulties raised with all of this. What do you do with people who are trying to sell feed now? How do you pay to transport it? What astounds me is that drought is such a common feature of Australian agricultural life that we don't just have plans, laws, welfare programs all in place to crank into action whenever and wherever there is a drought.
You are so correct with that. We don't have a plan. Australia has always been a very dry, well, the driest continent on the earth, and we have not prepared ourselves for this. It's like we see the warning signs. If you've got a cyclone coming, the government gives you a warning what you should do and how they prepare for it. We don't do that with drought. We don't really give out this warning. We don't prepare ourselves for it. And we know that we go through drought. It's just that over a certain period of time, and every so often we have an extreme drought, and that's exactly what we're going through at the moment. I know how the farmers are feeling in my own very small way, because I used to have my own cattle, and I went through that drought period. The creek dried up, I had no water, I had no feed, I had no grass, I had to hand feed the cattle, and to see them in poor condition, especially then when they were having to give birth to the calves, that I actually had to assist in the birth because they were so weak. It's a dreadful time to go through and to see what farmers go through, and especially when it's been their livelihoods and generations handed down to them, and then the kids turn around and say, I don't want this sort of life. I don't, I'm not going to continue. All the parents are saying, there's no life for you on the land. You're not getting the support that you need. And it comes down to government policies and decisions. And I also blame the National Party. They have been so weak and pathetic in supporting those rural and regional areas for so long now. They are the tail on the dog, and they're ineffective. And I've noticed that even with the dairying industry.
Well, there's a lot of talk that there's a dissent within the Nationals at the moment, a lot of dissatisfaction with the leadership and with Bridget McKenzie.
Look, a lot of dissatisfaction, that they're upset that she's done this supposed deal with me over the mandatory code of conduct for the dairying farmers. Let me put it into perspective. This is just not Bridget McKenzie, it's the whole National Party, because I put this up on the floor of Parliament in September 2018 to deal with the dairying industry and a fair price for the milk and about feeding the herds. The fact is, not one of them voted with that. They voted against that motion on the floor of Parliament. I've just put up recently the same motion again, and they voted against it. I've put up my private member's bill to actually get a fair price for the dairying industry and the mandatory code in a private member's bill, which they voted against. And it didn't go to the vote, but I know the reluctance for it. And even the Senate inquiry into the dairying industry, they voted against that. So it's just not Bridget McKenzie. It's the whole mentality of the National Party. They see me as a threat. I am a threat as long as you don't do your job. I gave a promise to the people of Queensland and people of Australia. I will fight for them on issues that they feel they're being forgotten. And the National Party forgetting about rural and regional areas, as they did with the sugarcane growers. They had it in the hands of Barnaby Joyce for a year and a half, did absolutely nothing. They came to me in desperation because they were about to lose their properties. I then phoned up the Prime Minister Turnbull and I said, would you talk to them? And I handed the phone over. They were shocked. They said they'd never spoken to the Prime Minister before. I got that because I stood my ground and didn't vote on the floor of Parliament until they got their code of conduct, because they were coming down to the last few weeks. Ask Alan Parker from the cane growers. Did I or didn't I get them the code of conduct, which has saved their industries and their livelihoods? So
all right, well, that shows how you're in competition with the Nationals. As you say, you're a threat to them if they don't do more. Tell me about this extension to the drought assistance payments. How are you hoping to get that through Parliament? Are you working with the government and the Nats to try and get them to agree to your amendment, or are you going the other way and trying to get Labor and Greens support?
Look, I'm going to get support wherever I possibly can for this drought assistance package. It's about talking to common sense. Now, there's no reason, no why in the wide world why they wouldn't extend it, all right? We are facing a surplus in the budget, and I understand that. If we are giving billions of dollars away to other countries and $500 million to the South Pacific Islands because they're saying, oh, we're in trouble here because of climate change, we want $500 million, or $150 million to the NASA program to send people up into space, but we're sending cows to the heaven. But the whole fact is that you've got to prioritise in our where our money goes. And my idea is you look after our own first. Chris, I've always said it. You clean up your own backyard.
You have
look after your own people, and that's my job.
We almost are out of time, and you need to go and rustle up those votes if you can. One other issue I just wanted to run by you. I noticed yesterday you talked about coral bleaching in the Great Barrier Reef as being a natural process. Astoundingly, I noticed some ABC types mocking you on Twitter, suggesting that you're a flat earther. I mean, what do they think coral bleaching is if it's not a natural process? They think it's supernatural?
It is. It is smaller the coral, the more tendency that it does have to bleach, rather than if you've got your huge corals that will live for centuries, that doesn't bleach as much as your more natural corals that actually die over a period of time, because it carries an algae in it and the symbionts that are in the coral. So they adapt to the water temperature. So they do, if you get close to Brisbane at the southern end of the Moreton Island, because the waters are cooler there, you will get some bleaching there. But the warmer the waters, as up in North Queensland and to the equator, Indonesia, around that area there, the corals thrive. Coral bleaching happens because how close it is to the surface and the sun's rays on it, but also the fact is that when you have huge amount of fresh water going into the ocean, that has an impact onto the coral, but it does regrow itself, and it does recover. Coral bleaching was found by Charles Yonye in the 1930s. There has been 26 reported cases of coral bleaching before 1982. It wasn't reported by the St James Cook University and the marine science till the 1960s, after it was actually brought into place. So it is used as a political agenda, their political science, and that's what this is about. And of course, the Marine Authority got paid $440 million. They have to justify their existence of how they're going to change this. It's a load of rubbish and bunkum. And the whole fact is that they talk about, I say, how are you going to deal with it? You've got all this money. Oh, we've got to look at the crown of thorns. Yes, I agree with that. And they've got to look at the runoff. Well, build the hybrid Bradfield scheme, take the water inland so it doesn't flow out into our
You've got it all solved there.
And destroy the Great Barrier Reef.
But the point is, it's a natural phenomenon that's so obvious. You can argue, if you like, climate change might make it worse or more common, but it is natural. That's what, and as you've just demonstrated, they're recorded in Australia for a century or more. Thanks very much for joining us, Pauline Hanson. Appreciate it.